And I'm all, but we're live. Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Nicholas W. Fuller, and I'm the host of Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the creators that make the things we love. I'm joined today by the dapper Andrew Watson, host of the Fool's Tale YouTube channel. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's absolutely my pleasure. It's lovely to get to connect. We're already getting viewers jumping in. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, folks, in the middle of the day, at least East Coast time. But it's a little bit more convenient time for you, huh?
Yeah, 5 p.m. here. So I know it's weird because most of the community is all in like the US. So I
Right.
miss like every single live because they're always at 2 a.m. at 3 a.m. And I'm like, because I used to catch quite a few, but it's always in the middle of the night.
Are you
Always.
like, I mean, are you a bit of a night owl or are you a early riser or what?
I just kind of I can jump between each. Sometimes I'm getting up really early, and other times I'm staying up really late. There's not really any consistency.
There's no rhyme or reason to this sleep schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
All right.
doesn't
So
sound
if
work
you,
for yourself.
right. No, I've been there. If you don't know Andrew Watson, first of all, you should go check out his YouTube channel. I think that's probably where most people that have heard of you before know you, I suspect, because you have 10.3K subscribers. It's 10.3 over 10,000 plus people that want to hear you talk about books all the time, which is pretty amazing. You're also the author of Harbinger of no,
Justice.
right? For some reason, I wrote in my notes as Harbinger of Chaos, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's not right. I mean, that would be a cool
No,
title too, but you know,
that is a cool title. Yeah.
Harbinger of Justice, the upcoming novella. You've posted about that. So, is Silver. That looking very
Yeah.
cool. Love it.
Thank
You're
you.
also a freelance video editor. You're a talented photographer, and occasionally you shred on guitar. And of course, you're a handsome fellow with a lovely accent. Andrew,
Thank you.
how the heck are you so talented? How do you do all this? Like, you just born talented or what?
No, it's that saying. It's the jack of all trades, master of none type thing.
See,
I can do all
I'm not
like
so
pretty
sure.
mediocre, but
I mean, your idea of pretty mediocre sounds like a master to me. You're doing pretty good with I think the YouTube. I've heard you play guitar. I don't know, man. Velden in the chat says Harbinger of Chaos. We needed Andrew. So there you go. You've got a
my
title
title
for
name. Yeah,
a sequel.
book
Yeah.
two.
Perfect. We
I
worked
think
it out.
Belden, you should write that. I mean, you are the Lord of Chaos, so it makes sense for you to write that rather than me.
Velden, wait. Velden, you've been trolling on Instagram and like saying, if Velden had a picture of
Yeah.
three heads. You said three heads and not a single brain.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. We kind
Right?
of have a back and forth, me, Velden, and Michael, the fancy novice, and
Nice.
we just spend the whole time on Instagram attacking each other. To be honest, so
Velden, if you ever
it's
want
quite
to
fun.
trash talk me, I will come at you.
He does have a YouTube channel as well. He
Oh,
needs
word?
to hurry up and make more videos. He's only made 2 so far, but he needs to make more.
Get on it,
For reals.
Velden. And we can
Yeah.
go troll you, and then you can troll me, and it'll be fantastic. I want in on the trolling. Um, yeah, man. So, well, I feel like there's so much to talk about. I want to talk, of course, about like your booktube. I want to talk about, maybe a couple words about the Break-ins, that little group that we know and love together.
The who?
The the what?
The
Um,
what?
talk about book. You know what? Let's start with talking about you, my friend. Talking about you. Um, so tell me a little bit, like, let's start with favorite video game. That's one of my favorite questions. Let's go with that.
That's a tough one. It really depends on like what time in my life. I think probably if I stood back and had to pick like an all-time favorite, it'd be Skyrim. It's always the one I go back
Uh-huh.
to. It's such a good game, and I could go on and just
Solid.
play a run through of it. Always a good time. I sunk so many hours in that game. It's ridiculous. And
Did
I'm
you
one
play
of those crazy
Morrowind?
people. I didn't
Go ahead.
know or Oblivion.
No?
I've not played
Yeah.
any of
Okay.
the other ones. I should really work my way back, but yeah, Oblivion looks good. Morrowind looks off the time.
Yeah.
Shelved.
Yeah. 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 No, fair. Dude, did you see? I saw someone like remade Skyrim with the brand new Unreal Engine. It was insane looking.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give
I mean,
PBtP any ideas because they'll just release it again.
I might be
I'm one
okay
of
with
the
it.
I'm one of the suckers who buys it every time, so I can't complain about it.
You're right.
But yeah.
Like, God damn it, the other special super sweet edition. Like, all right, I guess,
Updated graphics, okay.
I'm not generally like a gamer that's like, oh, the graphics are the thing, but like that game, I feel like, I mean, because you're so immersed in it, the graphics really do add to the experience, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. You spend so much time just wandering about, and
Yeah,
it's nice
yeah,
to for it
yeah.
to look nice while you're wandering
And
about.
exactly, you spend so much time wandering about. Yeah, it's nice to be like, oh, that's pretty,
Yeah, yeah, just stop and look at the scenery, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice, nice, nice. I believe also one of your faves, sir, is Breath of the Wild and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, these are solid
Yes,
choices.
yes. Those are more recent picks, but yeah, Breath of the Wild. I kind of fell out of love for gaming for a while, and then I got the Switch and played Breath of the Wild, and that was it. I just got sucked back into gaming, and that spent like a couple hundred hours in that game, something stupid like that. So yeah, it definitely brought me back. I do love that game.
So I have a Switch, but it tends to be like my son's gaming thing, and I'm always hesitant to like just steal it. But can I tell? I've been playing way too much Helldivers 2. Have you seen that one?
Yes, yes, yes. More so from you. I was watching one of your lives and you're talking about it, and I literally had Helldivers in my basket after that live. I was like, I don't have time. I don't want to get this. It's just
I
gonna
know,
suck all my
I
time.
know, I
Even
know.
you said you're like, it's so addictive. I'm like, oh no, but it sounds so good. I heard you talking about it.
Right?
It
I'm
is.
starting to kind of come off like the initial addiction, which is good
Mm.
because I could like meter my playtime a little bit more. Uh, but um, but I was literally like considering like my birthday's coming up. I'm like, I wonder if I get like, 'cause my wife used to play a little bit of Halo back in the day. I wonder if I can get like a PS5 and get her to play with me.
Yeah, yeah,
It could be fun. I don't think it's
definitely.
gonna happen. She's like, you want me to spend time playing a game while I'm getting a master's degree and raising two children? I'm like, please. She's
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah.
no.
Plenty of time. Plenty
Right,
of time.
right, right. Uh, hey, Bo, Tim, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you both being here.
Hello, wall.
Bo, I don't think ever actually works. uh, Hi, Hectate. Thanks for hanging out. So I said in the introduction that, of course, you're like a freelance video editor. You play guitar. You've written books. You've got your YouTube. Let me, we talked a little bit about favorite video games. Bo's at work
You
right
did
now.
yourself, oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but let's talk a little bit too about your freelance video editing work. So how did you get into that? And what has been like one of your favorite videos that you've worked on for a client?
Oh, yeah. So I graduated from a degree in digital media in 2020. So you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine what it
Oh,
was
which one?
like, the job market in that year. I graduated out and there was nothing. No one was hiring, nothing like that. So I started getting back into reading, getting back into writing, and I started doing freelance video editing then. And that's kind of how I fell into it. And it was just kind of a way to stay sharp and keep editing and make some money on the side as well until things go back to normal. But then
Mm-hmm.
it just snowballed and everything just sort of became full time doing that and everything else. So it was, yeah, it's been really good. It has been good. Favorite video that I've edited? That's a tough one. I am working on one right now that's quite cool because it's something completely out of my normal wheelhouse. It's a corporate video, and it's to do with a certain piece of tech that they have, and I'm making sort of this 3D render of how it works in Unreal Engine, and it's something that I have not done since university, which again was 4 years ago. So just going back into that and doing that sort of stuff again has been a ton of fun so far. So it's tough because it is trying to get back into it, and it's not the easiest thing to just pick up again after 4 years, but I'm enjoying the challenge. It's fun. It's good.
How do you manage? Like, you have an incredible skill set across so many different things. How do you even begin to stay sharp on, like, I mean, are you very regimented? Like, okay, I need to play guitar every week or I'm never going to be able to play it again. I need to make sure that I'm like doing some writing every week, and I need to do the video editing, and then like like the 3D rendering, kind of that clearly that sort of fell off, but you're able to kind of pick it back up again. What are you? How? Teach me your secrets so I can become Andrew Watson.
I wish I could say I was really regimented and scheduled, but it's chaos. It's complete chaos. And the one thing that with this is a lot of things, they could sort of come in waves. Like I played a lot of guitar in university and sort of stuff like that, but I don't play as
Mhm.
much anymore. I just kind of
Mhm.
play for fun, so it's not really something I ever make sure that I'm doing regularly. I don't think I've
Mhm.
played in a couple weeks, for example. Video editing, because I'm doing the YouTube stuff, that kind of keeps the ball rolling somewhat, and all the
Mhm.
freelance stuff, obviously. So I'm constantly editing. 90% of my life is in editing software currently. So
Wow.
yeah, that's good.
And sleep, video editing, and eat. No.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Hey Rob, how you going? Rob, can you
Occasionally work.
tell Andrew what the break-ins is, because he doesn't know?
I never heard of them. I thought they were the fake apps.
I really want that dude to like put that together, but it seems like he's like, nah, I don't know. I would be so
It
fun though.
it was so funny. I deleted Twitter from my phone for a couple of days, and I signed back in on my computer, and I just had a million notifications, and it was Josh's post and just all of the comments. I was like, okay, wow,
Yeah,
missed a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Right. Yeah, I have Twitter and Instagram. I have them on my phone, but I have notifications, like push notifications are off.
Yeah,
I don't need that.
yeah, same here. Yeah,
Rob is trolling back. He said I was hoping Andrew could tell me, but anyway, if Veldon's in the chat and he doesn't know or something, the Break-ins is a international guild of
yeah,
authors. We're all debuting either last year or this year, and we're helping each other out. And Rob and Andrew and myself are all members. Nice to be able to talk shop and lament with other people as we go through struggles with KDP, like Scott's going through right now. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Scott's having a hard time. Although I've heard loads of people are having a tough time with them recently. Scott seems
Really?
to be worse than most people, but just from Twitter, everybody's like got some gripe with them recently. I don't know what they're doing, but
Right.
it's
Right. Rob is going to
thanks, Rob.
figure out with you. Yep.
We'll sit down and piece out.
So that's interesting. This corporate video is like kind of your favorite one that you're doing for freelance. What about when did you start your booktube channel? Is it in 2020 after you graduated or before?
No, I 2022. The end of 2022.
Okay.
Really hard to
Okay.
remember. I suck at remembering dates, especially the last like 4 years. Is with COVID, it just throws all dates out the window. Yeah, I'm
So your
pretty sure it
channel's
was the end
really
of
like only a
2022.
little bit more than, well, like around a year and a half old.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, wow. Nice. You've had pretty good growth. Has there been like, I haven't really, no, yeah. I think like you've had one kind of like, uh, I mean, yeah. One big outlier was the ultimate top 10 fantasy book must reads. And that one had like
Yeah,
320,000 views.
yeah. I was
And
quite
that
lucky.
was,
Right early on, the first
yeah.
video I did was top 5 underrated fantasy books or something like that, and that did
Mhm,
really well, especially for like a
mhm.
first video. Normally, you post the first video and it just flops. And again, complete luck. I have no idea. It's just the algorithm being the algorithm. But that did give me a really solid foundation, because that first one, I went up to like 20, 30,000 views very quickly after I posted it, and that kind of kickstarted the channel, which really helped with building on it from there. But then, yeah, that one did ridiculously well after that as well, and a lot of the growth has been through that video.
That's really cool. I one of my first videos was right when Wired put out the ridiculous article on Brando Sando, and I think like a lot of
Yeah,
booktube went and commented on it, but I happened to be early to it just a little bit because that morning I couldn't sleep, and I woke up that morning and recorded a video like with a fairly brand new channel, and I'm like, I'm going to talk about this and how ridiculous it is, and I posted it and put it up. And that one got me like, I think it's at 7,000 views now, which is by far the most viewed video that I've put out, and like 200
yeah.
subs out of like the 375 that I have today.
That's
Like,
awesome. Yeah, it's
it's
crazy how
crazy,
much of it comes from like just one or two videos. It's always the top videos that bring so much traffic to a channel. Even the
right?
bigger channels, I do think that a lot of them, I've not seen their analytics, but I assume a lot of them have these breakout videos, and a lot of the viewership come through those. Seems to be
Yeah.
quite common.
No, yeah. I mean, I think you can see that on some channels. There was Sarah Labrat. She has like some outlier successes too, which
Hmm.
is like it's
Yeah,
interesting to see. I agree. Uh, Bo has an alternative theory. It's your bookcase. I
yeah,
mean,
it could be.
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. Um, what's been like your favorite video that you've created? Is there anyone that like sort of stands out and you're like, oh, this one was so great to make?
That's such a tough question. Oh no. I really like the spoiler filled videos. I've only done three, and one was posted today, and they always flop because they're spoiler filled, they're long form, and they just don't perform particularly well on my channel. And but they're a ton of fun because you get to go into specifics, and I can really nerd out on why my opinions on that book. And obviously, you need to have read the book to watch the video, so a lot of people aren't even interested at that point. But I do really like making those videos. They're always a ton of fun to just really delve into a book. I just put up one for Royal Assassin, which has a lot to unpack in that book. So that's a fun one to just sort of read and discuss with all the stuff that goes on during that.
Nice, nice. Uh, Hectate says, I love the spoiler filled ones. It started the most recent one before this one. There we go. Yeah, you got your fan. And either I'm paused a little bit or maybe Andrew mid sip. I think it's Andrew. We'll see. Hopefully he comes back or he's just drinking a lot of water. I see that more are joining. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. I'm sure Andrew will be right back. If you're on Twitter, go check out Andrew on YouTube. It's youtube.com/at the fool's tale. You should be able to find him that way. I think it's the_fools_tale. You can also check me out on YouTube, Nicholas W. Fuller. He is very thirsty. We scared him up. I'm sure he'll be right back. I talked with Rob J. Hayes, who's also in the UK, and he talked about how bad the UK internet is. Maybe that's why Andrew doesn't do lives on his channel. He just does, recorded stuff. But yeah, well, I take it back. He did do a live 3 months ago, but not very many. Yeah, I'm sure Andrew will be right back. I'm keen to talk to him too about Dungeon Crawler Carl. No, he really likes that series, and I really want to get into that one. It seems like it's very much my jam. Talk to him too about some of the other books he's liked, some of the books that he's read. He needs to feed the gerbil to get it going again. That's so funny. Yeah, that is what powers UK internet. It's just a gerbil in the Tower of London running. Yep. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Also live on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. And of course, Andrew's on Instagram as well. You can go follow him there. I like his Instagram too. He's got some nice pictures of books and all that sort of fun stuff. Takes really lovely pictures. Never got and see this? The gerbil? Is that what you know? Yeah. Let me go. I want to pull up Twitter as well. If you guys are in that chat, if you're on Twitter, go ahead and maybe give us a retweet. And it would be fun. Maybe tag Andrew and say, come back. Come back. Let's see. Had a fun question while we're waiting. I saw this on Twitter. Bo and Tim, did you guys see this? It says like, without saying your age, post your favorite movie release the year you turned 18. I had to look it up, of course. I don't remember exactly the movies that came out in 2004. Sadly, Return of the King was the year prior by like just a few weeks, so I couldn't pick Return of the King, which is very sad. But Dodgeball, the movie, with what was Ben Stiller, right? Isn't that Ben Stiller? Yeah, that was good. 12 Monkeys, David Hopkins. Okay, good. Inception, bro, solid. Half my feed is that meme right now. Yeah, Bo, what was your pick? That was pretty fun. I enjoyed that. You all are children. I know. Well, I mean, listen, I'm actually like the old man of this group, the Break-ins, and it's very strange because I've always been the baby in every group I'm in. It feels super, super strange to be one of the older people. All right. He's maybe coming back. I'm the grumpy old man who never partakes in that. Really? Oh, no fun, Bo. No fun. If you're on Twitter, you can follow Andrew too. It's Andrew the Watson on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, even though they actually finally changed it so that the main domain is x.com and not twitter.com anymore. I refuse. I will not. Go ahead and retweet and say, Andrew, come back. I know I already said that, and I think it may have worked. Andrew.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh man.
That's okay.
It's absolutely shocking.
You know what's funny is I thought
when I'm live as well.
I thought it was going to be my Wi-Fi today. I've been having like so much trouble, but I think like I think what I just had like my mother-in-law over for a little while, and she had like 2 phones that she has because she's weird, and I actually have 2 phones now because I'm also weird. So they're both connected to Wi-Fi. I got my laptop, my desktop, my son's like tablet, my daughter's tablet, my wife's. I think there were too many devices, and Spectrum was like, "Fuck off," you know, like we're not doing it. We're not. But anyway, so far, knock on wood, it's surviving here. Anyway,
I've got a booster tied to my computer because we have like a solid wall between me and the internet itself, and it just doesn't work without the booster. But the booster is the most temperamental thing ever. I think if like the main Wi-Fi dips below a certain amount, it just dies, and I have no way of stopping it. And it always happens when I'm live. Happened when I was last on here talking with Adrian and in as well, and it's been fine since. It's always when I go live. And the Wi-Fi's not even that bad, so it's going live. It's just I don't know what the problem is.
So we were just killing time while we were waiting on you, and I was talking about that little thing that's been going around Twitter, Andrew, of people talking about like favorite movie that came out when they turned 18. Did you see this?
No, I didn't. No.
So my pick was I wish it could be Return of the King, but that came out 1 year before I turned 18. So my pick, I went with Dodgeball. Do you ever see the movie Dodgeball?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
You right? Ridiculous fun stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to hear yours. But also, Bo just picked Boiler Room with Vin Diesel, and I don't remember this movie at all. What is this movie, Bo?
I don't recognize it. I am now looking at 2016 films, and I do not recognize any of these.
2016. Wow, bro. Like you are younger than I thought. Okay. All right.
Yeah, 98 I was born.
God, what in the world? So when you were born, I was 12. How is this a thing? Like this is just
Oh, The Nice Guys. That was a good film.
Nice. It's a modern remake of Wall Street, basically. Okay. Yeah. Boiler Room. College dropout attempting to live up his father's high standards gets a job as a broker for a suburban investment firm, which puts him on the fast track to success. But the job might be as legitimate as it first appeared to be. Like it has Vin Diesel in this Boiler Room movie, which is very interesting because I sort of just look at Vin Diesel as a
Fast
and Furious and Chronicles of Riddick. Andrew, you might not. Maybe don't drink water anymore because when it stopped earlier, you were drinking water, and then I just had you drinking water for like a bit.
No, really? I was just really thirsty. I saw that comment and I didn't understand it, but now I see it.
Yeah.
Just drink for like 5 minutes straight.
Right. Yeah. You were super thirsty. What was? I'm sorry, Andrew. I know that you just. What was the pick again for movie?
I think Nice Guys. The Nice Guys.
Nice Guys.
Film. Yeah.
All right.
That was a pretty good film.
Ryan Gosling. Have you read yet Project Hail Mary, Andy Weir?
No, I've not yet, but I will.
So it's going to be a film, and Ryan Gosling is going to be the main character.
I saw that, yeah.
When I first heard this, I'd finished the book, and I was like, Ryan Gosling. And then also I saw that he was cast as Ken, and I was like, listen, the guy in the book is specifically sort of mentioned as average, right? He's not like especially, and you're gonna cast the guy that played Ken, but
Yeah,
then
that's true.
then I saw the movie and I'm like, okay, I kind of like Ryan Gosling's like performance as Ken, so maybe I'll,
He's a good actor. Yeah.
it turns out he's pretty good.
Yeah, The Martian was really good. I enjoyed that. So I've not read Project Hail Mary, but I assume it would be a pretty good film because the structure of The Martian works so well as a film.
Right. If you liked The Martian, then I think you're definitely gonna like Project Hail Mary. It's like it so much of the same vibe, you know.
Okay, yeah.
But it
I
also
read
it's
the first line is really good. I can't even remember what it is now. It's like, is it 1+1=2 or something like that?
I don't remember
I'm
now.
pretty sure that's the first line to Project Hail Mary.
Now I gotta know. I must.
Because I thought that was a pretty funny first line. It certainly has me intrigued.
Yeah, no, it's so good. But I came into it really not knowing what to expect, and it is like a white room story where the main character starts in a white room and they're trying to sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way is to. So I don't want to tell the audience any more about the story. Just go check it out.
Yeah. Good to go
Tim,
blind. Okay.
right? Come on, Amazon, help me with the sample. I want to see this very first word. Anyway,
I've not even got a copy.
I have it on my Kindle, but whatever. All right, so where were we? Yeah, no, I love. Yeah, I think Andy does such good first. I mean, the first few lines of The Martian are just fantastic. I'm pretty much effed. That's my considered opinion. Yeah. Effed. Yeah. Love it. Where were we? Oh yeah, I want to pull back Instagram. Okay. So, man, so you've been doing the BookTube thing for about a year and a half. When did you decide to write Harbinger of Justice? Are you one of the writers that has always been writing since you were a little kid, or are you one of the ones that's more like kind of a late bloomer to it, where you're like, yo, maybe I could write a book?
I think I did in primary school. So in primary school, we had creative writing where quite often you got the start of a story and you had to write the end. And that was like my favorite class ever. And that got me really into reading. And then once I got into high school, I kind of moved away from writing and really fell in love with music. So I didn't write for like a million years and then came back to it in 2020. I was doing my honors dissertation thing. I was thinking, I've always wanted to write a book. And we just went into lockdown and everything. I thought, this is the time to do it because the market was so poor for jobs and such. So I was like, if I'm going to do it, this is the time to do it. So I actually wrote a sci-fi book, which is funny because I hardly read any sci-fi. I just had this sci-fi idea and I was like, I'm just going to write for funsies. So I wrote it over a year, edited it for another year, and it was such a fun process, but the book was pretty broken. Got early readers to read it and it was needing reworked, and I thought, I don't want to go for a third year working on this same project. I'm going to pull my hair out and go insane. So I decided I'm going to shift my focus and do fantasy, because at that point I was reading a ton of fantasy. I got into Brandon Sanderson and all that, so all of adult fantasy, and I thought, I want to do adult fantasy. This sounds like such a good time. So and then I started outlining, and I saw this with your talk with Scott. If you were writing a project, that is when you come up with a million other ideas. So I had this one sci-fi idea, but by the time I finished it, I had like 10 other ideas that I wanted to write. So it wasn't difficult to shift my focus onto the fantasy project, and that was Harbinger of Justice. And then I started writing that.
And of course,
22.
Your best idea is always your next idea, right? Right.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Right.
It'll be so easy to write this time.
Oh man, the books that I'm writing right now, I was like, oh, it's gonna be so much easier. And it's like, nah, writing a book is still like, I talked to. Have you heard of NJ Alexander? He's on Twitter's Nick A. Writes. He wrote Fogbound. He's in Spiffbo right now. But
I've seen Fogbound. Yeah.
There you go. Man, he jumped on the book party I did with Isaac Hill, and he said that he wrote his book in a month, and I was like, get out, sir. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Are you serious? I can't.
That's insane.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone could do that. But he's like, well, I just locked myself in a room and like hated myself until it was done. I was like, I don't know. Even like, I don't know if
That's
I have
a
enough hate for
process.
myself. Maybe,
Yeah, I'm definitely more the slow and steady chip away at it over time. But I know a lot of these people, some of them just binge write the first draft
Yeah.
in particular and then start chipping away on the edits after that. I know like Matt Dinneman, I think he was on a really tight deadline, the author of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and this was one of the later books, book
Hmm.
5 or 6, so it's one of the more recent ones. And he said that he was just basically locked himself away for a week. And I can't remember how much he wrote in the week, but it was something ridiculous, like 50,000 words in a week or something insane like that. I'm probably butchering the numbers, but it was something that made me
No, I
go,
mean, that's amazing. That's
madness.
nuts.
Yeah.
What kind of dead does he is? So I know that he started Dungeon Crawler. I'm excited that you brought up Dungeon Crawler Carl because I want to talk about that one. I know that that's one like that you're enjoying lately. I haven't quite got it to it, but I'm like, I really need to because I think that this is going to hit so many good notes for me.
So good.
Um, but he started that I think on Royal Road, and
Mm.
now it's of course like out on Amazon. Is he did somebody pick him up? How did he get a deadline, or was it maybe Podium?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not really sure.
I
I
wonder.
can't remember what the deadline was. It could have just been a self-imposed deadline of I want
Sure.
to release it for this date or something, but
Right.
I'm not sure what the deadline was. He's definitely self-published. However,
Right. Right.
I think he's just been picked up from the first 3 books with the publisher. Because if you go on Amazon, you can no
Nice.
longer buy the paperbacks for the first 3, but there is
Oh, really?
these 3
Oh.
hardcovers with new covers. So I've my friend pointed this out, and I was like, I've not seen anything about this anywhere, and I'm usually on the ball with, especially Matt's work because
Yeah.
I really like the books, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I think he's been picked up by a publisher, and they're just working through the books, but the first 3 are completely gone, and you can only buy the new hardcovers now. So
That's
it might
exciting.
be
Even like the
tracked down.
ebooks are gone too,
No, I
or just
think
the
you can
paperback.
still get the ebooks. Yeah, just the paperbacks, I think.
Okay. Nice. All right. Cool. So I'm already like sold on the series, but let's pretend that Bo hasn't read them yet, and he wants to know what. Like, tell us a little bit about Dungeon Crawler Carl, and like make a pitch for Matt. Let's do Matt's work for him.
Okay, so the thing that got me was the pitch. I was watching a live with Andrew's Wizardly Reads talking with Murphy about something. And I can't remember the original what the live was about, but he was recommending this series, and he said it's to do with aliens come down to Earth. They
Hmm.
crush every single building immediately and kill like most of the world, and then everybody who is standing outside is invited down into this dungeon, and it's basically this huge Hunger Games alien TV show that you need to work your way down the levels, killing monsters and looting things. It becomes a lit RPG, so you can level up and find items, and you have to work your way down. And if you make it all the way to the bottom, you're free to go out into the galaxy, and I think they give you money and stuff to help out with that. But most people die in the dungeon, and I don't think anyone's ever made it to the bottom. I think there's like floor 15 or something. It's like the furthest anyone's ever made, and there's like 20 floors. So that's kind of the basic concept. It's ridiculous, it's over the top, it's insane, and it's hilarious, and I love it so much. You should definitely read it.
I love that like there's that premise for the lit RPG, and it's not just like I woke up and I'm level 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I
I
feel like
love
that would
just
draw me in more. Like I'm down with progression fantasy where it sort of feels like that's the world, but like as soon as you kind of get the stat menus and it's like my strength is 1, I'm like it usually kind of pulls me out, but I feel like I could still vibe with it in that setting because it's sort of inherent in the ridiculousness.
yeah. Dungeon Crawler Carl was my first lit RPG, so I didn't really have
Yeah.
much to compare it to, but I loved it, and it's such a good way to get into the genre because it's not over the top. You don't really need to track the numbers particularly closely,
Right.
which is
Right.
the numbers are just kind of to show you the progression of it. Really, they do come across like cool items, and they do play a part in the story later on, which is really fun. But they
Sure.
remind you that it's really accessible.
Right, right, right. And I mean, who among us doesn't love a magical item sometime, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's fine. That's
yeah,
fine,
it's always a good time. Always.
right? Yeah, I gotta check those out. That seems fun. So again, like I think I want to while I have you here, I want to talk about something else for like just a second that is kind of on my mind. Of like again, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm like 98% sure that he initially posted on Royal Road, and he probably did the Patreon thing, and then he kind of brings it out to Kindle. And I feel like this is kind of almost becoming like a new form of indie publishing, you know, and it's successful with some other people, like the guy that wrote He Who Fights with Monsters and Beware of Chicken, whatever. Anyway, these weird titles, but still.
Yeah.
What do you think of like that kind of approach? And is it something you've looked into much, or like is it, you know, you? I mean, it seems like you're a little bit aware of it at least, you know.
Yeah, I've seen it, and like the Wandering Inn is the same sort of thing, but I've not looked into it from like a publishing standpoint. It does seem to be pretty successful for a very certain type of story. These sort of progression fantasy RPG stuff where it's very, I don't know how to word it, almost episodic. Like the Wandering Inn is one huge story, and then once Pirate Abba gets to a certain point, chops it, and that's a book. So it does. I've not read it or listened to it, but I have heard it feels like a continuous story, and it's just chopped down to books to make it digestible for getting the audiobook and stuff produced. So I think it's definitely a way of doing it for a certain type of story, and it's great to see that, because this is the one thing where the industry seems to be going, that sort of what you assume is indie publishing is becoming something else. It's not just the very set definition. There's so many different ways of doing it. I've tried to make a big long form video on indie publishing twice, and I deleted all the footage both times. One of them was like 2 hours long, and I was like, it's just not good. So I just deleted it, and it's such a difficult thing to define and kind of make this one video on, because there's so much to it and there's so many different ways of doing it, and I don't want to give wrong information, and I don't want to say this is how you do it, because there's so many different ways to do it. So especially like with Kickstarters as well, I mean, they're becoming huge now for indies, especially with launching not just special editions but their books, because we have Caden and ZS Diamante. Both of them did so well with their Kickstarters. So
Right. Yeah, I was amazed with Caden, and then around the same time as Caden did his, there was another author named Amber Toro, and so they were both debuts, and they're launching on Kickstarter. I'm like, how did you do that? How do you have success? That's amazing. Like, kudos to them. That's crazy, bro. You had 2 hours of footage and you just straight deleted it because it was like, oh man.
I even finished it. Like, I rounded out the video. It wasn't like it was half shot. I shot the entire thing and went, nah. Delete it. I was like, no.
That's what. It's. I wonder about that for like dudes that have been on YouTube forever. You ever watch MKBHD?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like his channel, but the dude's been making videos for like 15 years, and like part of me wonders, like, does he keep all the raw footage, or does he just have like kind of the finals somewhere on like old hard drive somewhere? But that's good. So you're at that 2 hours, you just straight up deleted all. You've got your external hard drives.
External hard drives. Yeah.
Are each of those like a terabyte or? Yeah. All of it, all your raw footage you keep. That's amazing.
Yeah, a couple of them are 2, a couple of them are 4 terabytes, because it's got the client work and stuff on there as well.
True.
It gets ridiculous with file sizes.
That's wild, man. That's wild. I feel like I don't know. Like mostly, I'm like. Once I upload it, I kind of forget it. But like I feel like I might keep the finals, but I don't know if I feel like I need to keep all the raw footage. But kudos to you.
Moving towards that, because it is such a nightmare to handle. Every time I'm like trying to render something out and it crashes, and I'm like, why is this crashing? It's like, your hard drive is full again, so I need to remove files onto an external hard drive.
Right.
I'm probably moving towards deleting raw footage, because I never go back to it either. Once the video is out, it's out. And if I want to take a clip from that video, I'll just use the final video file rather than the raw shot. So yeah, I should do the same.
Well, I mean, maybe we could both learn from NKBHD. Apparently, he put out a video showing how he archives it all. I might have to check that out. Tim says, "Yeah, debut authors knocking out of the park on Kickstarter just blow me away." I completely agree. I completely agree. It's amazing to me, but it's also, I think, a little bit of a testament to how Kickstarter is becoming its own like sort of publishing platform, and there's like its own community around there that people are finding stories on Kickstarter. Which is amazing too.
Yeah.
course, Bo says Amber has a big following online. She offered true special edition. Yeah, the true special editions is true, and I think that's cool. Yeah. I think she she was gonna do her own sprayed edges on some. If you like it, like her top tier Kickstarter things were sprayed edges that she was gonna paint herself. You know.
I think
That's
Ryan
pretty next
Cahill did that. I'm pretty
Did
sure
he?
he did it with the Of Blood and Fire or the Fall. Right at the start when he was selling editions just on his website, he had a limited run. I think they were numbered, and he said he hand sprayed or painted the edges of
Wow.
books. So yeah. He said
That's
it was a
pretty
nightmare
rad.
and he would never do it again. So I completely put me off.
Right.
I heard that. I was like, okay,
Right.
not doing that. Noted.
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny. That's funny.
It does sound like it'd be a lot of work.
Right? Man. I mean, yeah. Oh, okay. She's doing the stenciling. The main edge color is getting done at a printer in Canada.
Right.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't even
so we have.
I didn't even think of that.
We have this drinking game. Anytime that someone mentions Ryan, we all have a drink. I don't have a drink in front of me, so I'll do some later though.
Forfeited.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk a little bit more about writing. What is your, so you wrote that science fiction, which is rad. Do you still have that bang? I bet you still have that banging around somewhere too. You didn't just completely delete it all.
No. To be fair, I do like a lot of the ideas because it was going to be a trilogy, I think, or a really big sci-fi book. I do think I'll probably go back to it eventually because I do like some of the ideas that were in it. It was just the execution wasn't great because I didn't really know what I was doing. But I learned a lot from writing it. I mean, Harbinger would not have been what it is without having gone through writing that other book. So
I feel like somehow writing a book is the only thing in it's this incredibly difficult endeavor, and somehow we expect to be good at it on the first try. But why is that?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
There is this thing. It's something that Michael R. Fletcher talked about. There seems to be a block. If you talk to authors, they'll always say, it took me X amount of time to write the first book, but after that, it's like, oh, I wrote the next book for like the year after. I think there is like a mental hurdle of that first book. It's just like writing a book is impossible. It's so difficult. But then you do it and you're like, it's possible.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I can do that. So that is not easier to replicate, but there is definitely less of a mental...
Right.
I'm not going to be able to do this than the first one. The first one's always the toughest to finish.
So I have noticed that too, and here's my theory that a big part of that is figuring out the process that works for you, right? Because I bet by the time you were doing book 2, you're like, oh, I know that I like to outline this much,
Funnily enough, the sci-fi book was not outlined at all, whereas Harbinger was. So yeah, I did it, and then I was writing myself into corners, and then I was like, right, this time I'm outlining and doing it right. I need to outline, or at least have a very loose structure of where I'm taking the story. It's not like a really thorough outline, but I do need bullet points or something just to make sure that I'm on the right track.
One of my first interviews was with Travis Baldry. Great chat. After I'm done with Andrew, if you're still not paying attention to work, Bo, then you should go check out that chat. But yeah, man, he talked about how he tried doing NaNoWriMo 6 times before he wrote Legends and Lattes. And he's like, I always failed. He really, really desperately wanted to be a pantser and just have this beautiful transcendent moment where everything just fell out of his fingertips and it was wonderful. And he's like, and it doesn't work for me that way at all. So Legends and Lattes, he finally had an outline, and he says it's amazing how much fucking easier it is when you have an outline. It was great.
The difference is so strong. It's great because I was the same. I was like, I'm going to be a pantser. I really like this. Not just going with the flow of the story and taking it anywhere. And I was always worried that if you outline it, you get bored because you already know the story. But it's not the case at all. I definitely find that the outline is something to be adapted. This is the other part. I always thought this outline was this solid thing, but Dirk Ashton talked about, oh yeah, I update my outline, when I'm writing the first draft. I'm like, you can do that?
You can do such a thing? Yeah, right, so,
definitely.
Right.
I was like, okay, maybe a bit of outline would help, and it definitely did.
Yeah,
probably would have finished it without the outline.
That's interesting. Like I know what you're saying though, because there's been one story that I wrote that I do feel like I over outlined it, and I just like it did take out a little bit of the fun for me because like I knew too much of what I wanted to do in like every chapter, and I wish I kind of gave myself a little bit more room, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Tim has this interesting question for you, Andrew. How long does initial outlining usually take you?
That's a tough question because I always kind of have chipping away at it in the background in my head. So when I
Mm,
sit down to actually outline it with like somewhat thought towards a structure,
mm-hmm.
usually a couple weeks is what I have for getting the outline. And again, it's pretty loose. But before that, I'm always thinking about ideas and have scenes in my head. Like even before I was outlining the first book, I knew how book 2 would end, and I knew what book 3 was going to encapsulate, and sort of the ending towards that. And yeah, it changed and it tweaked slightly,
Yeah.
but I definitely had most of the story in my head, or at least the very loose, big overarching plot points before I even started outlining. But yeah, outline 2 weeks, I think it took me.
I feel like this also kind of depends on the story and the idea too, right? So I
Oh yeah,
imagine Silence is Silver, the novella, you probably didn't need to take so much time. But then I have an idea for a pentology that I want to write eventually, and like the whole sort of very loose still, but the whole like outline for the arc of the pentology was just in like hours, you know?
yeah, yeah. I was
That
kind of like
that
that
was
with the novella as well, because it is a lot shorter and it follows one of the characters in the main series. So I had his whole backstory in my head, and the whole story just already sitting there. So I was the same. A couple hours to outline that was just to get all down.
nice,
But it's how
nice.
much of it you're always kind of working in the background. I assume you're the same with the pentology. You probably didn't just say come up with the original idea and then come down and write it within 2 hours. You were probably chipping away at it for months, if not years, in the back of your head, pulling together different ideas.
It's definitely like sitting in the background a lot now too, because like I want to write this other story first, and we'll see how long and what I make it. Because I'm planning like a trilogy, but I have like thoughts on how I could carry the story further with some secondary characters, But it will depend. Like whether I do that or not is going to depend on audience reception, you know. Um,
Yeah.
uh, but while I'm working on this story, I'm thinking about that other one a little bit. So yeah, I'm sure when I go to actually write it, it's going to be pouring out. Uh,
Yeah.
Tim jots bullet notes in a file over weeks or even months, then condense that into a loose outline. That seems like a
Yeah.
solid process.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. Except
David
mine's an
Hopkins.
absolute mess. I use my phone. The notes
Really?
app on my phone is just filled with random notes, and sometimes I do it in the middle of the night, and I look at the note the next day, and I'm like, I have no idea what this means.
what
It's
did I even say?
complete
Yeah, yeah.
nonsense. Yeah, I
That's
won't delete
funny.
it because I might remember at some point, but a lot of them don't make any sense at all. So,
That's funny.
but
You're gonna go to
I think it
outline and be
was.
like, I don't want to this idea needs to work into. I just need to figure out what it is.
I'm sure this is the key
This is
to make
yeah,
this whole
right.
book work.
Yeah,
And the
that's
notes
funny.
like banana shoes or something. You're like, I'm sure there's something here.
There's got to be banana shoes in this story. It's got to.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think it was
Uh,
Stephen
go ahead.
King on writing said
Mm-hmm.
he did. I think he doesn't even write down a lot of his ideas because he's like all the good ideas will stay in my head. If it's a good idea, I won't forget it. I'm not sure how much of that is true because I'm sure I've
Yeah.
forgotten okay ideas that could have turned
Right.
into something good. But I do like that. It's just like it makes me feel better about these notes that make no sense.
Yeah, that's true. I know I am a compulsive note taker too, and like, yeah, I've got tons and tons of notes, and I feel like if I don't, then it's gonna fall at the back. But yeah, I agree with you that I think like the best ones are either gonna stick with you or like you'll probably come back to them.
Yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
his whole process freaking blows my mind though. He's like, I don't have an outline. I don't know. He just gets interesting characters in an interesting situation, then he pants his way through everything, which I guess works if you've been writing freaking bestsellers for like 50 years.
Yeah, yeah,
But like,
yeah.
I don't have
Clearly
that
works.
experience. I
So
can't do that.
no, yeah.
Uh, David's in outlining hell for the third book in the series.
Mm.
The novel will be roughly 600 to 800 pages, bro. That is a chunky boy. I don't know. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your outlining hell though. Like what is going on there. And Andrew says, do you do a lot of character profiles or you discover you write characters? Which I find very interesting. So tell me your process, Andrew.
For characters, usually I do the plot first, and then I go back to the characters and
When you say I do the plot, you mean in outlining, or you write like a
sorry,
draft
yeah,
that's
yeah. I'm
okay? Okay,
outlining the plot and
yeah,
looking at the character and making sure that they would follow through and they would do what they do in the plot, if that makes sense.
yeah,
The
yeah,
fact
yeah.
that they are like, and usually I have about 3 points for a character, and it's the whole like, what they like now, what do they think they need, and what do they really need. Those are the points that I really like, and I usually have them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they change. Naya, which is one of the probably the main character in Harbinger, she changed quite a bit just by writing it. So I did revisit those points and revisit the outline just to change her arc. I remember going through the story when it was pretty much done, the main plot, and tweaking just her chapters and her thought processes because it just made more sense for her character to go a certain way. So I did
Hmm.
go back and sort of change bits, but then in other cases, Rai was pretty much, I wrote him all the way through, and that was a lot more straightforward. I didn't revisit his motivations and his points as much. So it was a wee bit more chaotic with the first book. The second book is a lot not easier, but I know the characters now. Whereas in that first book, you are discovering the characters as much as I do think you learn a lot more from writing them than just sitting down and trying to picture a person. It's too complicated to just sit and create a profile. For me, anyway, I can't sit and outline all their thoughts. It
Yeah.
needs to be uh, written and actually living life through them in a way to kind of get a feel for it. So it's a lot easier with book two because I know who these characters are.
I love that. I feel very much the same way. Like I try to kind of create a character profile, and I feel like I'm getting better about understanding how to do that, because I think that there's a ton of like trash advice, honestly, on how to do character profiles, because no one's going to give a shit what color your character's eyes are. Doesn't like rarely is that meaningful, right?
Yeah,
Then you get the character sheets and it's like, what color are their eyes? Doesn't matter.
yeah,
The thing that matters is like what drives them and what are they absolutely passionate about and what's unique
mm,
about this character. What's and then you need characters too that like react in interesting ways to scenarios, right? If
mm,
I'm at the coffee shop and someone cuts in line in front of me, I probably go, man, whatever, right? That is boring as shit. If I write a
mm,
character and someone's cutting in front of them, my character is going to call that person out and like maybe
mm,
deck them. You know what I mean? Like, because
yeah,
that's what we want to read, you know?
mm,
So I think that's something that's stuck with me. In fact, there was a blog post from Will White where he specifically was kind of touching on this and how characters need to react in interesting ways, otherwise it's going to be as bland as a bread sandwich. I was like it, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, and he does that very well. Like in the Cradle series, the character Yaren is always just trying to like fight her way out of every single problem, you know, and
mm,
it works for that character, and it's a great juxtaposition with this other character Lyndon that's trying to sort of plan through and everything, and she's like, nah, let's just get in there and we'll fight our way out, you know. um, but I've had like a lot of trouble with trying to find a character's voice, and I find, like you said, like I mean I can't really get there unless I'm writing it, you know. I need to do the work, and I'm
yeah,
finding a little bit that I need to kind of go back and change one character a little bit to kind of like you talking like you had that experience.
mm,
Have you I've heard this idea of like kind of auditioning characters where you're sort of writing them one way and see if it works for a while, and then you might try it like a
yeah.
different way. Have you tried some of that too?
No, I've not. I've heard that works quite well. I know some people they like to write like short stories, or even they just write sort of a day in a character's life, sort of going about what they normally do. But for me, I just wrote the story and followed the characters, and
Hmm. Hmm.
it worked. Like usually, it just kind of works or it doesn't. So you
Yeah.
write it and you go, this isn't working at all, and it could be a problem with the character, it could be a problem with the plot, it could be a problem with both. But other times you're writing it and it just calls for something else. I have a character called Kit who's a very minor part in the outline, and he wasn't going to really be that important a character, and he ended up having a point of view chapter in the book because his importance just went a lot. It became a lot more important to the plot as the story went on, and then I had to revisit the outline and everything. And his character is quite strange because it's a bit tonally different from the other two, where
Hmm.
he's very flippant and very sees the world in a very unique way, and he's really fun
Hmm.
to write from. And that was just kind of it, just perfectly fit someone who lived his life because I had this sort of history. I think if you create like a history of a character and you know where they came from, then it's a lot easier to kind of get into their head and kind of picture how they would picture it.
I love that too. I heard that from shoot guy that wrote Dresden Files. I think I can't remember the author's name.
Jim Butcher?
Yeah. I think Jim Butcher while he was on Adrian's show.
Mm.
Man, SFF Addicts.
Mm.
So he was talking about how he'll give like when he's designing a character, he'll give them at least like three sort of major things that they've done in their life. Um,
Mm.
and you can kind of reference it in the work, but it also very like it very much informs that character's
Yeah.
perspective on everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, but he's like, and then you could even kind of have fun with it. Like later on, you can write some of those events if you want, but you don't have to. And I was like, that was such a light bulb moment for me, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
If you there's you can tell when an author has this story in their head and this character is going through the story in comparison to when you're reading a story and you know this character has history. When they start
yeah,
referencing things that happened in the past, it just adds so much depth to a character. And you don't
right.
even well, I don't personally sit and write outline their sort of past. I did for Rye because it's a huge part in book two, and we get a whole like back flashback sequence with him in book two. So I did need to have all this background knowledge for him. But for Kit and Naya, it's mostly just I know what their life was. I just kind of you think about it and think about all the situations that they would have been in that sort of line of work. They would live in the street, so
Hmm.
food is
Hmm.
very different. They see food and money very differently than other people, and it's
Hmm.
just sort of weaving these into their personality and through their experiences of life.
I love that. So I think I probably already know the answer to this question because you kind of mentioned you had to like rewrite Naya. But do you find that like particular characters are sometimes more challenging to write and to sort of find their voice than others? Because I know I do.
Yeah, yeah. I think Naya, because there was so much I wanted to do with her character, and in the end, her character arc is tied to the story, and it wasn't as tied originally, but it just perfectly fit together, and it also fits with the magic system. And I tried to make it subtle, so only if you sat down and thought about it. I didn't want to make it really overt with sort of the themes and stuff that go into it, because I like people to
Yeah.
like read a story and see what they want to see in the story. So I tried
Right.
to make it more subtle, but I did go back and rework some of her character because it just closer to fit the narrative and the magic system and sort of the arc that I had in my head for her after finishing the book or coming to towards the end more so
Yeah.
than actually finishing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Um, what do you think about, thinking about characters? I think we're clearly drawn to like strong characters. We as readers, as people, right? We want characters that are going to have interesting interactions and like strong, passionate feelings. Um, but there's also room for sort of generic, I'll say, characters, and sometimes that's like the success of a work. With I'm thinking about even doing like some video series where I want to talk about like the things that stories did right when it's a story that people love to dunk on. So like the
Mm,
Twilight series, everyone loves to dunk on the Twilight series, and like I get it because I'm not. I mean, the writing is mid, right? But like it works that the main character Bella, I think, is so bland because so many women, young women especially, are able to like it's self-insert, right?
mm, yeah,
Um, what
definitely.
do you think of like that? I mean, is that like a strategy that's something that's can be harnessed and used much, or like, or are does it only really work in YA with sort of a less read reader? I don't want to say like less sophisticated, but like someone that
Yeah,
hasn't read as much, you know?
yeah. I I personally am not a fan of it, especially in written work. I think it works really
Hmm.
well in the likes of video games. If you look at Link,
Mm.
The Legend of
Well, yeah,
Zelda,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
he's
like Master Chief, like had like
yeah,
zero
yeah,
personality through so many games, right? But
yeah, because you're living the life through them. Maybe if you
hmm
tried something really cool, like a second person type book, you could make it a very. If you do something like really out there and do something bizarre, then it could be a real draw to the book. But I'm not a huge fan of it in more just a normal fantasy story. I don't
yeah,
think it's tough because so many people like a book because they get attached to the characters, and if you're
yeah,
not attached to the main character because it is so bland, you need to
right,
have something else that are drawing them into the story and keeping them interested, be
right,
that a side character or the plot. But a lot of people like the main character. There's
right.
a lot of people don't like unlikable main characters. The number of reviews I've seen on Grimdark books is like, the main character's awful and I didn't like him 1 star. I'm like, it's the point. It's meant to be an unlikable
Yeah,
character, and that's fine if you don't like that. It's a taste thing, but to it was written that way in purpose. And I think if you're going to go even further away from that as someone who's very bland, I'm not sure that's I can't see it working unless you're doing
yeah,
something really out there.
right, right. Yeah, no, that's yeah. Second person would be interesting. I don't think I
But
want
what
to try it.
you can do, one thing that works really well is sort of, I've not read it, but I've heard that Senlin Ascends, the main guy in Senlin, apparently he's quite a not bland character, but he's an average Joe. And I think having like an average Joe character in a very bizarre situation and seeing how they handle it can be very entertaining. Or like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Obviously, he's a somewhat normal guy, I guess. But seeing him
Mhm.
deal with all the chaos of that story is a lot of
Yeah,
fun. So I don't think your main character needs to be some epic hero. They can be
right.
an average Joe. I mean, even in a way, Carl in Dungeon Crawler Carl, he is a very simple person and has a very, just standard life. He's not a multimillionaire. He's not a wizard. He's very just a normal guy. And seeing him deal with the chaos of that series is one of the draws to it. So
Right.
you can have an average Joe type character and make it work as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. That's interesting. Let's explore that for just a second. Like how what like so he's an average Joe and he's in this sort of very unaverage situation, right? Uh do you like does he because again I haven't read it just yet, but I want to. So does he sort of feel let me rephrase this. How does Carl not feel bland? What how does Carl come across in the story where he's like where he's really showing personality?
Mm. So in the tone of Dungeon Crawler Carl is quite flippant, tongue in cheek, very
Right.
fun, funny. But what Carl is really good at is he is living it. We are reading it, and we are kind of the audience in a way, watching these crawlers survive this dungeon. However, Carl is living this dungeon. So he's seeing people die around him. He's seeing these crazy situations, but he could die at any second. So it's watching him kind of deal with that. And at the end of every day, there's a counter of how many humans are still alive. And every night he looks at that counter and it's dwindling down. It's quite dark. And as the books go on, it gets darker and darker. And he gets angrier and angrier. And he wants to start fighting back against the people who are making the dungeon. And is watching him just deal with this horrific situation. But to us, it's very funny. To him, not so much. So it's kind of
Yeah.
uh, this contrast in tone of his point of view in the chaos and the very funny, silly things that are happening. It just works so
Hmm.
well. It's great.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. I mean, I've really got to jump into this series. I think it's going to be so fun.
Yes. Check out the
Uh
audiobooks, they're so good.
oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think Daniel B. Green did an interview with the author and the audiobook narrator.
Yeah, Jeff Hayes.
That's pretty rad. Um
Yeah.
like what Christopher was saying, I think this might be why I'm writing multiple POVs. So hopefully the reader is drawn enough in the story because at least or two of them, one or two of the POV characters they connect with. I
Mm.
like that. I think that's smart. I think that's pretty clever, Christopher. Um, I like what Tim said too. Mysterious characters, another way to do that. Kind of leave it open ended so that people can insert themselves at least until a
Mm.
reveal. I think that could work until the
Yeah.
reveal, right?
I Yes, But I think this is one of the reasons why people's least favorite secret project was the Frugal Wizard's Guide to Medieval England. And
Hmm.
I think partly the reason is because the main character has amnesia, and because he
Hmm.
doesn't have this history. And it's fun watching him try and figure out his past and going through this story. But because he's not got that history and he's not got much of a depth and he doesn't really know who he is, it's very difficult to connect to him as a character. And it can work, but I think it's quite hard to pull off.
I'm very interested. Not even sure. Well, we'll just. Well, I want to touch on that point again sometime in the future. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say, Andrew. Uh,
Intrigued.
yeah. Having one POV character is outside the main storyline. They'll come into it at some point, but the reader isn't sure how. I think that can be
Mm,
interesting. I'm
that's
working on
yeah.
like I'm working on a story right now that I intend to like do in multiple vignettes, kind of from multiple points of view. But at like one point, I'm gonna be like, bam, and it'll be the antagonist point of view.
No, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I can pull that off
that's
in
the
an
one.
interesting way.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's really cool with having different point of view characters is
Yeah.
when they do all come together. If they do all come together, it's always so fun to see these storylines clash together. I think that's one thing that Stormlight does really well, and he really takes his time because I don't think they even meet in the first book. I think Dalinar and Kaladin do, but having the very slow clash of all these different stories and already having all this history of each of the plot lines and how they tie into the bigger arching story,
Hmm.
so well done.
Right. I mean, yeah, like thinking of Game of Thrones, the way the different points
Mm,
of view and like have the competing
100%,
sort of
yeah.
story. Oh man, it's beautiful. And then I remember like watching the show and spoilers, but kind of when you find out just how integral Littlefinger is to everything that's going on, you're like, that son of a bitch, that little fucking asshole. Oh my god, you know. Um, Tell me, Andrew. I would love to hear a little bit. I don't want to keep you too long. I've been talking for an hour, but this has been lovely, and I feel like I'm learning some things from you, Andrew. So, um, what is your process like? I mean, we talked a little bit about you outline. I recently heard from someone where they do an outline and then they do uh what they do beats and then some other word that starts with an S, not scripts. Man, like my memory of names is just failing me today. But then they get into the draft before that, and then of course some editing and whatnot. But I always find it kind of interesting hearing like what the process is. You mentioned a little bit, kind of drawing some character profiles early on. So what is your process like with a new story?
So with Harbinger, I did the outline first, and that's just story beats. So I
Hmm.
have the
Hmm.
main beats of the story, and I then write that to between the different beats. So I don't have thorough notes. It's probably I can't probably like 4 or 5 A4 sheets type of thing, but I handwrite it, so that might be neater if I did it on a computer.
You handwrite? Oh, really? You handwrite the first draft?
My outline. No, my outline.
Your
My
outline?
outline's
Okay,
always
okay.
handwritten, yeah. And then I write the different sort of mainly the main characters, like the point of view characters. I have notes on them and kind of their basic character arcs, like kind of what I'm going for over the arc of the story. Usually it's tied to the plot, so I sometimes don't even write down it separately. I just kind of note it throughout the story as we're going through the outline and just the major turning points in their character and in the plot. And then I jump straight into the first draft. First draft is complete chaos. I just fly through it quite as quickly as I can without making it too unreadable. I'm very much in the boat that the first draft is a zero draft. As soon as you get it done, it's a lot easier to fix bad writing than to come up with good writing first. So I get that first draft down, and then no one gets to see the first draft ever. It needs to be burned. I usually don't have placeholders. I know some authors like to have write cool action scene here or character name too. I do like to have everything in the first draft and kind of have everything down just so I can stand back and look at it a bit easier. Another thing that people usually say is to stand back from your draft for a while. Personally, I prefer to jump straight into draft two because I know what's wrong. A lot of the time, it's like I need this character to do something different at the start of the scene, but I'm not going back to rewrite that while I'm writing the first draft. I'll just continue on like that's what happened. So I'm reading it
Hmm.
through it and then fixing the first draft into a second draft, and then I would take a break for a couple weeks and come back to a third draft and kind of go through it. And that's usually when I'm looking at consistency, plot, character arcs, and just the overarching beats. And then it's sometimes a way to arc readers after that, or beta readers even, the other readers. I usually send it off to a small beta reader team. My gran is always the first one that reads my work, so
Love
she's
that.
always like, can I get?" So I give her a copy first, and she reads it, and then I get other readers who are fancy readers, and then I take the comments for that, do another draft, and usually do another draft on top of that, depending on the book. I didn't for the novella because it was shorter,
Hmm.
so usually by draft 5, it's pretty much done. It would go off to the editor to get professionally edited, and then fix the edits, and I do a proofread, which is just cleaning everything up and doing the typos and grammatical problems if anything snuck in from working through the edits.
Dang, nice. Uh, when you're doing that zero draft, I'm kind of in the same camp. I feel like, this is draft zero. I'm just trying to get it down. Then, like, I need to follow up pretty soon after. And for me, I'm looking to improve 4 areas on that next draft because I know that these are always going to be weak in my zero draft. Like, my setting descriptions are always trash in the first draft, and if they're there at all. If
Mm,
my interiority, I'm usually lacking. I tend to write a lot of dialogue and action in like the zero draft, but not a lot of
mm,
thoughts, and
thought process,
I
yeah.
need to add some of that, right? And even though I'm writing a lot of dialogue, I'm not always including enough body beats. So I need to kind of look for
Mm,
where can I insert some of the body beats. And then also, again, with that first trash zero draft, I'm not really being uh, expressive in an interesting way enough. So I'm always looking to like, how can I make this add some interesting metaphors and similes along the way? Then, and that's what I'm looking for in my like second draft. So like my question is, do you have similar things that that you're going to kind of be keeping an eye for when you're getting right back into that next draft, or is it going to be kind of like you said, like, oh, you know what, I need to change what they were doing, and those things sort of evolve as you're writing?
most of the time it's fixing up the consistencies because again there's so much wrong with the first draft just narratively doesn't make any sense. If someone read it they'd be like, but they were in the other room 2 seconds ago. So a lot of it's cleaning that sort of stuff up. But
Got it.
the other one is flow. I think flow is really really important to get the flow and
Mm,
pacing of a story, and
mm,
that's so hard to tell while you're writing it.
mm,
You have to really read it back and see like this part's going way too fast, this part's way too slow, and tweak it after that. It's really difficult to tell while you're writing if something's gone past too quickly or too slowly. So that's another one that's huge for sort of like the earlier drafts, is to get that out the way. But I'm the same. I have things like with conversations, a lot of the time I'm just getting down the basic beats of the conversation. So sometimes I tweak the dialogue, sometimes I'm adding movements in between and what they're doing, because
hmm.
it's just instead of just person talks, person talks, person talks, person talks.
Gotta have
And
them body
that's what I
beats. Yeah,
needed.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that's kind of what I needed when I was writing it. I do need to just fly through the conversation and then move on. I do find it a lot easier going back to it and adding these things in. So yeah, I'm
Mm,
the same, going back and putting those as well.
nice. Are you a fan of the out loud read to kind of help you with the flow? Do you do is that part of your process,
Yes,
reading the whole thing out
yes.
loud?
Yeah, usually towards the end, yeah, I'm reading the draft
Yeah.
out loud.
Nice, nice, nice. So along these lines, I know you've had really good feedback from really, really early readers of Silence of Silver. So what's worked with that one, and what felt good in that process? What made it gel so much? Was it that you kind of already knew some of the characters from writing Harbinger of Justice, or was it something
Yeah,
different?
because it's so short
Hmm.
for a book or a novella in comparison to writing the full book. I will say I learned a lot from Harbinger by working
Hmm.
with my editor, Sarah. She's the absolute best. I learned so much just from her editing notes. So I do think that just from a level of progression from for the first book to that, I would have become a better writer by going through that. And I do, because it is so short, I can do some really fun things with the structure. So it's very theme heavy, which is not something that's a huge part in the first book. It will play a bigger part, more theme heavy ideas in the second book. But there's something I wish I did more of the first book. So the second book will kind of be a blend between the Harbinger and the novella in tone, because the tone is very different in the novella.
Mm.
So I think just because it's shorter, it's a lot easier to do these weirder structures and have, if you decide, oh, I want to put this theme through the story and tie it to these different plot points, it's a lot easier to retroactively go back and add those in because it is so short. So
Right.
it's easier to edit than a book because it's so short. I think
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, the reviews have been really positive so far. So it seems to have worked. Cross my fingers
Right.
once it goes out properly. But all the art
Right.
readers seem to be enjoying it, which is amazing. Such a great feeling. There's nothing better than having someone message you and say that they really enjoyed it. It will forever be the best feeling ever.
Yeah, yeah. I have an in-person writing group we meet on Saturday mornings, and they're like my first tier beta readers, and they were reading some stuff that I just put together. And there's 3 other people in my writing group, and God bless Diane. She's so emotive when she's reading our stuff. So she was reading my stuff, and there are parts that are supposed to be funny, and she's just literally laughing out loud, and I'm like, yes. Yes. Nailed it, Yeah. That's always a good feeling.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a pretty good place to stop, Andrew. I've got to keep you for an hour and a quarter. That feels like I should probably let you get on with life, I suppose. No, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And where can people find and follow you online?
At The Fool's Tale on YouTube and Instagram. I am on Twitter as well, at Andrew the Watson, because Andrew Watson was taken. I'm not as active on Twitter, so you probably better catch me on YouTube or Instagram.
Right. Any teases for stuff to come on YouTube in the future? Anything?
I have got a new series coming out, hopefully next week or this week. Today's Monday, isn't it? Hopefully
Today's
this week.
Monday.
Hopefully this week I'm going to put out the first episode of Fantasy Archive, which is kind of a deep dive into different aspects of fantasy. And the first one will be on Lit RPG, which I don't think I've said yet. So Lit RPG is the plan for the first one. Kind of going into the history of it.
Exclusive news here. Thanks. That sounds fun. Just how deep are these deep dives in this series?
Are these
2-hour chonkers again, or
No. They would be relatively similar to my other video lengths, but
okay.
It is looking at the history of it and going back and seeing how much you can figure out from being online, because obviously the origins of things is very hard to find, and people have contradicting. Oh, it started here. No, it started here. So just kind of going back and just trying making it into a video, because after reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, I was like, I need to know more. I need to know more about this subgenre.
Yeah. That's pretty fun. I'll be checking that one out. Nice.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you again, Andrew. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't subbed to Andrew, go do it. Come on, what are you doing? If you also haven't dropped me that subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram. I tend to be fairly active on them both. It's Nicholas W. Fuller, or author Nicholas W. Fuller. I've also got Patreon. It's patreon.com/Nicholas W. Fuller. It's free right now. It's basically just a newsletter. That's going to change at some point, but we'll more on that in the future. And thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for being in the comments, those of you that were. Appreciate it, David, Tim, Bo, Chris.
Thank you all.
Yep. And if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.